Good morning, Ferri Middle School. Today is day F. The order of the periods is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
Under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain for a moment of silence.
Please be seated. And now to today's history and sports.
October 7th, 2001. Just weeks after the September 11th terror attacks, the United States and Britain launched military strikes on Afghanistan. On a videotape, Osama bin Laden praises God for the 9/11 attacks, but the Al-Qaeda leader does not claim responsibility for them. 1985. In the Mediterranean, Palestinian gunmen hijacked the Achille Lauro, an Italian cruise ship off the coast of Egypt. The hijackers killed passenger Leon Klinghoffer, an elderly Jewish-American tourist, before surrendering 2 days later. 1991. In Washington, U.S. Supreme Court nominee Clarence Thomas faces damaging allegations of sexual harassment. Law professor Anita Hill accuses Thomas of making sexually inappropriate comments when she worked for him in 2 federal agencies during the 1980s. Hill urges the Senate to investigate. Thomas denies her claims, and the Senate later confirms him. 1998. Matthew Shepard, a gay college student, is beaten and left tied to a wooden fence post outside Laramie, Wyoming. Shepard dies 5 days later. Russell Henderson and Aaron McKinney are serving life sentences for his murder. 1951. John Mellencamp, the singer and songwriter with Heartland rock hits, is born in Seymour, Indiana. And 1982. In New York, Cats, the musical by Andrew Lloyd Webber and Tim Weiss, opens on Broadway. Today in history, October 7th, Mike Glossier, The Associated Press.
Hi, I'm Giada Achille.
And I'm Jason Thruwa.
The weather today is cloudy. The high temp is 74 degrees with a low of 55 degrees. The wind speed is 11 miles per hour. The wind direction is south. The humidity today is 16%. Today's lunch is scheduled as the following. First lunch is 7 blue and 7 white. Second lunch is 6 blue and 6 white. Third lunch is 8 white. Fourth lunch is 8 blue. Today's lunch is mac and cheese bar. Toppings are diced chicken, diced ham, steamed local broccoli, chopped bacon, and a fresh fruit and veg bar. Quote of the day. It isn't where you come from, it's where you're going that counts, by Ella Fitzgerald.
Inspirational.
We are asking for every student to please give your clean styrofoam tray to the members of the green team every lunch. Yes, every lunch. If it's clean, please keep it clean and do the right thing. Your earth thanks you. These items are found throughout the building. If they are yours, please claim them in the library as soon as possible. And now to Jason.
Thank you, Giada. Today's fun fact of the day. Oh, no, wait. Today's joke of the day is picking the pink one. What is a math teacher's favorite subject?
What?
Not subject. Tree. Geometry.
Thank you.
Today's quote of the day, not quote. Fun fact of the day. Ancient people wore Halloween costumes to hide from ghosts. The student council meeting will take place today, October 7th, not tomorrow, October 8th. I repeat, the student council meeting will take place today, October 7th, not tomorrow, October 8th. Thank you.
That's all for today. I'm Giada.
No, I gotta say that
Sorry.
thing. Ferri, forever educating respectful, responsible individuals.
That's all for today.
That's not all for today.
Now, Mr.
Students, now to Mr. Skip for student shoutouts.
Woo!
Yeah.
Good morning, all my Ferri Jaguars out there. Okay, so it is October 7th. I know we're a little late, but it is time for our September shoutouts. All right, and for those of you who don't know, now you know. Okay, so let's start. We are starting out with our 8th grade. Come on, 8th grade, looking a little light over here. You can do better moving forward. All right, so let's see. Eeny, meeny, miny, Miss Fortunati, if you can please pull this month's shout out. All right. And this month's shout out goes to the illustrious, dare I say infamous, Jacob Spinella for being very helpful during field day, courtesy of Miss Fleming. And now to 7th grade. Now this is what I'm talking about right here. Okay, so we are going to have Miss Achille. I knew I was going to mess it up. That's why it took me a little bit. She's going to pull for 7th grade. Don't pull your own.
I don't even think I have
Oh, you got to dig deeper than that, Giada. Dig deep. No, that's fine. We're going to take that one. That's the first one. All right. And this goes to Tyler Hartman because he did a great job on his summer work, courtesy of Mr. Cascus. And then we have 6th grade. All right. And we're going to have Mr. Padula pull it. All right, you got to do this right. All right.
I'll pick my favorite color.
Pink is a great color. I will agree.
There you go.
All right, and this goes out to Stephen Vera for bringing in all of his school forms, courtesy of Miss Georgie. All right. So all winners need to report to Miss Silvera's office to take a picture and claim your prize. This month is a $25 gift certificate right across the way to Pizzeria Romana. Oh, yes. And we can't forget Ferri Live. Remember, forever educating respectful, responsible individuals. Thank you so much and see you in a month.
7 days into October, we thank you for taking the time to watch CNN 10. My name is Carl Azus. Our down-the-middle coverage of world events begins with a recap of a recent meeting between delegates from the United States and North Korea. Those two countries have been rivals since the Korean War took place in the early 1950s. But U.S. President Donald Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un have met twice since last summer, making history in the process. They've been trying to see if they can establish a lasting diplomatic relationship and lasting peace on the Korean Peninsula. There's been no major agreement yet. A key issue between them is North Korea's nuclear program. The country sees that as its right. The international community, which includes the U.S., sees the program as illegal. And America has put strict sanctions in place, limits on parts of North Korea's economy that are intended to pressure the communist country to give up its nuclear program. North Korea wants those sanctions removed, but timing has been the sticking point. North Korea wants all of the American sanctions lifted before the country gives up its nuclear weapons. The U.S. wants North Korea to get rid of its nuclear weapons before the sanctions are lifted. So it's an issue of who makes the first move. The two sides have continued negotiating, though. Over the weekend, American and North Korean delegates met in Sweden for talks at the working level, meaning neither of the country's leaders nor top officials were there, but negotiators from both sides were. So how did the talks go? That depends on whom you ask.
The working level talks between the US and North Korea ended in Stockholm, Sweden. And judging from the responses from both sides, you could imagine they were in completely different meetings. This often happens between the US and North Korea. We heard from the North Koreans that there were no fresh ideas, that they were very upset that these talks had broken down. And we heard from the US side that they had a very good discussion and there were plenty of fresh ideas. So what we heard from Kim Yong-gil, he's the North Korean who was leading their delegation. He said that the US was sticking to old attitudes and old ideas. Now, what we can read into that is that potentially the US was not willing to ease sanctions immediately before seeing any concrete moves from the North Korean side. But we did hear from the US side. Steve Biegun was leading those discussions. We heard from a State Department spokesperson saying that they don't believe the North Korean comments actually characterized the 8.5-hour discussion. They said there were good discussions, there were fresh ideas. They also said that Sweden had invited them back in 2 weeks' time to continue the discussions, and they believed that was going to happen. From the North Korean side, they said that the US should go away and should think about what it has done and decide by the end of the year if it was going to come up with anything new. Also saying that they are now at a crossroads of dialogue or confrontation. Now, this is not the first time that this has happened, a very different idea of the discussions at hand, but at least the two sides had discussed for 8.5 hours, which is one good sign. Whether they meet in another couple of weeks, we simply don't know. Paula Hancock, CNN, Hong Kong.
In an average year, between 5 and 10 people in America get sick with a virus called Eastern equine encephalitis. It's a disease carried by mosquitoes. This year, there have already been 32 cases, mostly in the northeastern U.S., and it's particularly alarming since the virus kills about 30% of those who get infected. Scientists say most outbreaks of EEE take place from the late spring through early fall, but they don't know why this outbreak is worse than previous ones. EEE is carried in birds. Mosquitoes that bite them and also bite humans can spread it. Experts say there's a large population of birds in Massachusetts that have no immunity to the virus, so that could be a starting point. The virus itself might have mutated to spread more easily. Also, there was a lot of humidity and heat in the Northeast this summer. Mosquitoes thrive in those conditions, and scientists say a hard frost will kill off the insects when it hits. Until that happens, they recommend using insect repellents, wearing long pants and long sleeves, and staying indoors from dusk to dawn when mosquito activity is highest. In fact, the University of Connecticut had a football game scheduled for 7 p.m. on Saturday. They moved it up to noon over concerns about EEE. Rhode Island is another state being affected.
While a Rhode Island baseball team squeezes in a late summer practice, up above, something is happening in the state for the first time in nearly 30 years. Aerial spraying to kill mosquitoes, a last line of defense in the state's fight against Triple E.
There are certain conditions like this year where we have to go above and beyond those normal measures because people's health is at risk.
Eastern equine encephalitis, or triple E, is a virus transmitted by mosquitoes through a mosquito bite and can cause a rare brain infection, sometimes death.
I have a couple, 3 at least candidate female mosquitoes in here.
Al Getman is an entomologist for the state. He's studied mosquitoes for 27 years, tracking their habitats and what diseases they could carry, like West Nile and Triple E.
You're around mosquitoes all the time. Are you alarmed by this spike we're seeing?
Well, yes, this is a very, very unusual year we're having here in southern New England. Nothing quite like this has been observed before where EE has become so widespread.
At least 30 people have become ill in 6 states this year after being bitten by mosquitoes carrying Triple E. 11 of them have died. Finding answers as to why the widespread spike starts with catching mosquitoes.
You're laying more traps now at the direction of the state. Why?
We all want to know in this very unusual year how much EE is out there. Where is it? What species of mosquito is it in? Etc.
Getman leaves the traps overnight, and by next morning,
Well, that's a good mosquito catch for this time of year.
next it's back to the lab where those mosquitoes are frozen and separated by species.
That's our weekly routine, is produce these vials and get them up to our state health department.
Where the mosquitoes are ground up and tested for the presence of Triple E. The results inform state officials about next steps on how to combat the disease. It's a process repeated every summer.
We really can't predict it's going to be a bad summer.
While the disease is cyclical and outbreaks happen every few years, officials say determining why it's setting records now will take time.
What would you say to the people that are really worried?
The threat is out there, that's certain. The obvious message to the public is to remain vigilant and protect yourself from mosquito bites for the rest of the season.
10-second trivia. Herculaneum was an ancient city buried by the eruption of what volcano? Mount Etna, Santa Maria, Mount Vesuvius, or Galeras? In AD 79, Herculaneum was one of several cities destroyed by the eruption of Mount Vesuvius. Scientists from the University of Kentucky are trying to use new technology to get a read on some ancient Roman scrolls. The papyrus scrolls were discovered in the ruins of Herculaneum in 1752, but no one's been able to read them because they were charred in the 1st century eruption of Vesuvius. Physically trying to unroll the scrolls could ruin them completely. So here's what researchers are doing. First, they used a synchrotron, an incredibly powerful source of X-rays, to take detailed pictures of the delicate scrolls. Next, they're using a computer program to look through the images in the hopes that it'll be able to tell the difference between the layers of papyrus and the ink that's on them. It could take more than 6 months to do this, but if it works, it could unravel anything from an ancient Christian text to a Greek philosophical text to a 1st century grocery list. There's just no telling what's on it. But the leader of the research team says if we've made the effort to save the scroll, we should try to read it. Lamborghini Aventador. Unless you find one on sale for like, say, 97% off, you won't find one for $20,000. But that's how much a father and son say they've spent building this one. The dad is a physicist who works with lasers. That probably helped in the 3D printing of the car's pieces, which were then glued together. It has a Corvette engine, and it could be finished after 2 years of work. They hope it'll get others interested in engineering. Maybe one day they'll drive it, or one day they'll dread it. But even if it's not real, you gotta Lamborghini give them credit. 3D printing a car may seem a little quixotic, but it's a whole new 3rd dimension of exotic. You can get Gallardo power from an LS or a Hemi, and you'll have a Miura image of a Lightning Lamborghini. It brings the cost down to something more affordable, a carbon fiber copy that's Aventadorable. I'm Carl Azus on the loose for CNN.